Pako. Bwana, kama wazazi na katika ndoa ambazo ulizotupa Bwana, tunakuita asubuhi hii ipate kuwa pamoja nasi. Nena nasi na roho zetu zipate kupona kwa kusikia sauti hiyo. Maana tunaomba Kristo aliye Bwana na muombe wetu. Amen. So this morning we are talking about what? Communication. So how do we communicate? I want to start by defining what communication is. So let's talk about this together. What does communication mean? Hebu tuzungumze kidogo, tuchangie. No, don't cheat. Don't cheat. But let's talk. What does it mean to us? Yes.
Communication is about two-way.
Okay.
Sending information and receiving information. And feedback.
Anybody else? I'm not getting the feedback. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Exchanging of idea, a message, verbal or non-verbal, from one person or one entity to another.
Okay. So the challenge comes when we are exchanging this information. Now, what if I said something that I'm sure was right, but you may have been the one that received it wrong? Kwa hivyo ni mambo gani ambayo yanategemea ili tupate kuelewana? What if I was thinking about something else but it came out the wrong way? Kwa hivyo misunderstandings zinaweza kutokea mahali, sivyo? Okay. So one of the things, that is why this one is very important, sending it in such a way that the sender wanted that message to be understood. But how do I know that that is how you wanted it to be understood? Tunaelewana lakini? So this is where the challenge comes. Because every communication that we do has a lot of other factors behind it. Kwa sababu, depending on how you are raised, depending on where you are at that point, depending on what else is going on, from mali ambaye amelelewa, maisha ilivyo endelea nyumbani kwao, everything that went in the first 10 years of their life is coming into these communications. Tunaelewana lakini? But at the same time, what is happening within me at that point? And how am I perceiving the world? Where am I? Where am I coming from? Who am I? So the whole gamut of what I've gone through, katika maisha yangu yote, to where am I coming from? Where am I right now and where am I hoping to go? But the other person is also going through the same thing. Who am I? Where am I coming from? Where am I right now and where am I hoping to go? If those things are clashing, hapo ndio kuna shida. Tunaelewana lakini? So you're starting with that social context. There are physical and psychological barriers and contexts that you have to go through. There is a relational context, depending on who it is, how long you've been together, what are the points of your connections, and then there is also a cultural context. So in other words, there are so many filters along, kuanzia huyu mpaka huyu kwa mwingine. Somebody was making a joke one time, they say that it was so cold in the North Pole that when you spoke, the words froze. And the other guy, alikuwa achukue kikaango, he put the words there so that they can throw out, then he can put it in his ear. Tunaelewana lakini? But that's exactly what seems to happen, because it has to go through so many contexts. There are so many layers that by the time I think of a thought, then I begin to speak it. From the time I think to the time I speak, something has already changed. Because I have to pass it through the lens of, if I say this, tariyak namna gani, na labda kama kuna hasira, na tutaangalia baadaye, by the time it's coming out, it's been added to all these other layers of of hormones and thoughts and neurotransmitters and all that, by the time it gets out of the mouth, then what is happening is it has to be transmitted. Transmitted through the culture, transmitted in how things were expressed at home, how sometimes either it out or somebody else will be afraid and couch it out even though they are hurting, but wanavumilia na nakwambia everything is okay. Tunaelewana lakini. So depending on, they didn't get any response. Then later on he looks for other numbers, he gets the right one, and he gets the tower, and they are telling them, no, we cannot okay you because we don't have your schedule. I was like, what are you talking about? So they have to call their own agent to be able to radio back, the plan, the flight plan to the tower. So I think it took about another 10 minutes, and then they were called back, and then the plan was cleared. Now the problem is, there was no truck to push them back, so they had to go look for that. And by that time, tensions are beginning to rise. Then they came and hooked it up, they pulled it a little bit, it broke down. Now walikuwa wameisukuma tu kidogo, lakini haijafika vizuri yenyewe. So they had to remove that. Now go look for the guide track. Kwa sababu hii ingine ilikuwa imeshindikana. Wakasema sasa tutafuta hii track nyingine ambayo ina bendera iwaongoze, to turn around, because now it's supposed to be pushed way back and then it can actually go by itself. But now ili isigonge huku na huku, they had to put this track to be able to guide it mpaka wameingia. Kufika pale ukatokea shida nyingine tena. By the time they were ready to leave, they were 1 hour late. And by this time the tensions are rising in the cockpit. Tunaelewana lakini I don't know whether this is beginning to make sense, because we're going to talk about the cockpit of the home. So one thing is moving, everything is wrong. So by the time they are leaving, there seems that they detected a problem. One of the instruments was already showing that the plane, which is still supposed to be in the airport, is supposed to be 399 knots away from the airport. So there is a problem already. So the plane doesn't even know where it is. Sasa shida nyingine ikatokea. There are 3 instruments ambayo inaonyesha what we call the attitude indicator. So ndege ikiwa imeinuka kichwa juu, ama kichwa imeenda anza kwenda chini, kama imepinda upande mmoja hivi ama chochote tu. So there are 3 instruments. There is one for the pilot, there is one for the co-pilot, and there is one in the middle. So anytime when there is a problem with one, they check the other 2. If there is a discrepancy, it sends an alarm that there is at least 4 degrees difference. So walipoanza kuinua, huyu jamaa lazima apinde aende mahali, and there is a place where you're not supposed to go to, where people live and all that. So you'll be cited if you flew over that. So he was really worried because he couldn't be able to tell when is he supposed to turn, and he was actually supposed to go to the southwest and then turn to the southeast. So he was worried all this time because there is a problem. But anyway, akajibahatisha wakaenda. But by the time ameanza kuchukua mkondo wa kutoka southwest anapinda kuendelekea southeast, sasa ndege ni lazima ipinde hivi. So alipoipinda ndege hivyo, his indicator showing that nothing is happening. So anaendelea kuipiga, but the other guy anamwambia we are okay. Now it's actually going past 15 degrees, 45 degrees. But the other one is showing that nothing is happening. But by this time wamebishana pale ndani hata kabla hawajaamka, kwa sababu when the communications were coming back, the pilot, who was 57 years old, ex-airport colonel, and this guy was 33 years old. The other one had about 14,000 miles of experience. This guy has 1,400. Sasa ubishi ukaanza pale. Na when they are communicating, unajua ni wa Korea, hawaelewi Kiingereza vizuri, so wakati mwingine inakuwa shida. But this guy is supposed to be the one that is communicating with the tower, lakini kwa sababu all the delay na mambo ambayo imetokea, huyu ameanza kumtusi na kumuita majina, so mwisho he took over to communicate with the control himself, which is not allowed. So by the time mambo haya yanatendeka na wamefika angani, instruments of the poor pilot are okay, but he did not answer anything. Akamwachia huyo aendelee nayo. By the time they realized, yake haionyeshi chochote. Ile nyingine, there was alarm coming through, but they ignored it. The tension continued to increase. There was alarm. Kuonyesha kwamba very close to the ground. And it hit the ground when they were almost like 500 kilometers per hour. And it exploded and everybody died. There were 4 of them. What am I talking about, this tragic situation? How do we communicate and navigate when there is distress in the cockpit? Jana tulizungumzia habari za Musa. He is born when there is a new Pharaoh in the land that did not know Joseph. The Bible says in chapter 2 that there was a man from the tribe of Levi who married another woman, a woman from the tribe of Levi. Of course, you know his name. So when we look at what is happening in the house of Moses, we only know about Jochebed. We only later on learn about the name of the father and the other brother later, about 18 chapters later. Because of the death decree, it reached a point where every male in the family had to duck and go silent. Because babies, male babies, were being killed. So we only see Miriam and the mother active, because it was a danger and a risk to rear your head as a man. And this is when Moses is born. Think about being thrown into a river that for 3 months has been floating with dead bodies of dead boys. Tunaelewana lakini? That collective trauma. And then you are rescued and taken back to the same village. And every single day as you grow up as a 1 year old, you're the only boy around. And people seem to be talking behind your back. Some with jealousy, some with anger, some with pity. And it wasn't long before he hears from the girls about what had happened, which he knew in his blood something wasn't right. So talk about trauma. Tunaelewana? Some are angry because he's not one of us, because they know he's now being raised as an Egyptian in going to be growing up in the palace. Some feel like you don't even belong here. Some look at you as an Oreo, they say. You know, black outside and white inside, pretending to be one of us, snitching, and will be growing up, enjoying all the things that we don't. What are you supposed to do when you know who you are, but you're not supposed to identify as who you are? Because it's supposed to be a secret. And how long do you deal with that secret that is burning inside? And then to wonder that I didn't sign up for this. In a nutshell, Moses goes back to the palace, as you know. Later on, sees what is happening and realizes he doesn't even belong there either. And no, he does not know where he belongs. This is where our children are, by the way. They are third culture kid. They are not completely Tanzanians, and they are not Americans either. They're like Barack Obama. He was not black enough, not white enough. But one day, he couldn't hold it any longer. everything that he had held inside blew out. He opened his eyes and he had killed somebody. Because, you reach a point where your kid is called the nigger word, and before they know it, what do you do when you worry about your children losing their identity? What if they don't lose, but remember who they are when they are called the N-word? And before they know what happened, wamelima mtu mngumi mpaka chini. And now unaitwa wewe ni mzee wa kanisa, kijana wako has made a death threat because he's tired. Tunaelewana lakini. Then unaenda unampiga viboko kwa sababu, what are you doing? You know where we are? What am I supposed to do? How long have I been called this name? And I am tired. I didn't sign up for this. Why can't we go home? If I am African, what are we doing here? And if we are not supposed to go home, why can't I belong here and forget about this African thing? Because I'm tired of being half this and half the other. In this research I'm doing, there's one group of this third culture kid I was talking about in psychology, in acculturational psychology. Sometimes we refer them as 1.5. And one of those looked at me and said, I am not a 0.5 of anything. I don't like that labeling. It's like, this with some African blood, they live in Midian as the priest of Midian. 6, 7 girls. This lady had dealt with pain of masochism and male chauvinism and all that kind of thing. Every day wanapigwa, ndio wanachota maji mwisho, the end of everybody. It doesn't matter how early they came. And so she had dealt with abuse. And Moses wakes up, sees what is going on. He remembers all the injustice that went on. Something snapped in him. He woke up and those guys ran. They realized this was a military captain. He stood up, and the way he knocked one guy out, the rest landed and ran away. And they realized this guy is more than a human being. Luckily, he didn't kill anybody then. But he ends up in this house. Gets married to this lady who looked at what happened and said, yeah, this is the man I need. Until they get into the marriage. Then tensions began to arise. And I don't have time to go through all that. You know what happened. But the climax of it is in the inn. Genesis 4 verse 24 to 26. They are at the inn returning to Egypt. Then all hell broke loose. I don't know what exactly happened. Theologians are really wrestling with that. I don't know whether Moses had a heart attack right there. I don't know what happened. But finally, the bond of contention came out. They've been arguing about the circumcision of their son. And Zipporah had said, over my dead body, but he realized that the husband was going to die. So he circumcises the boy and throws it at him. And then takes the bleeding boy and the other one and goes back home. Yeah, talk about violence in the pastor's house. Yeah, we think these ones are too holy. They're always praying. They will never have a fight. Right there. She goes back home to her daddy with a bleeding child on her back. And the other boy in tow. And tells Moses, you can go by yourself. When she needed her the most. It's until many years later that the father brings them to meet Moses at Mount Sinai. And that was not the end of the story. You don't hear much about the family of Moses after that. In fact, they had to go bring Obab, the brother, to stay with her. Because there was so much going on. Miriam is not helping it. When he looks at it and says, you married this black thing? I don't have anything to do with this. And God has to send her to spend 7 days outside the camp. And you talk about, turmoil in the camp. And Hobab had to come and stay with them. Gershom and Eleazar grow up, and later on they have grandchildren of Moses, one of which is Jonathan, who ended up quitting the church and becoming a Levite for sale to the tribe of Dan, using the effort and all these other things to work for Micaiah, and then later on was bought by the Danites. To the point that the Bible is so embarrassed, they call him Jonathan, the son of Eleazar, the son of Manasseh. But they had to change from the son of Moses to the son of Manasseh to avoid the embarrassment. An idolater, grandson of Moses, quit the Seventh-day Adventist church and is out there doing terrible things, attacking the church. Trauma in multiple generations. What are we doing? Are we dealing with this? You know, what is amazing is some research found out that the longer women delayed giving birth to their children, the better the chances for the mother and the child. The longer they delay giving birth, the better the chances for all women except black women. Why black women? Because the longer we deal with trauma, the longer we deal with racism, the longer we deal with all these things, the more we accumulate all this stress and pain and all these, and the longer we give that to the child. And the greater the danger for you and the child. How do we communicate? You know, when you look at the brain, and courtesy to Dr. Bruce Perry, he looks at the brain. You see, Don Siegel uses this hand. See, when you fold your hand like that, this is the brain stem, this is the limbic system. If you go through here and through here, this is what is happening at the emotional center. This is the prefrontal lobe right here. So what is happening is that down below here, what is happening is it controls all the breathing system, all the autonomic nervous system, everything that is going on. This is the nervous system that is controlling the emotions and all that. This is the prefrontal lobe. So as you can be able to see, the brain stem is in charge of all those heart rates and pressure and all that, sleep and all that. By the time you reach the midbrain, we are dealing with the beginnings of the motor regulations and arousal. By the time you reach the limbic system, is dealing with all those emotional reactivity, sexual behavior and attachment. By the time you reach up there, it's the abstract thinking and all that. But what is going on when emotions begin to rise? What happens when this part is so agitated to the point that it impacts the emotions? While these emotions are so high, it flips the lead. And when it flips the lead, you are nothing else but a hormone on steroids. And you're really angry and you're saying and doing things that after you finish doing it, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour later, you ask, who did all this mess? Like, yeah, you did it. Did I do this? Did I say this? And by the time you sit down to find out how the battle started, you're so embarrassed that it was something so minute. But because you flipped the lead, the prefrontal lobe of the prefrontal cortex is no longer working. It's until later on it comes back and connects again that is like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And where are we communicating from? Is it when the blood pressure is going up? Look at this. It's interesting. See, when we are here, everything is okay. We are calm. We are using these obstructive areas and reflective areas of the neocortex. Your IQ is 120 to about 100 to 120. Then somehow you begin to be alerted with something that has happened. And then by that time, you switch from this neocortex to the limbic system. You begin to deal with the concrete areas, and by that time, you're dropping your IQ between 80 to 110. And by the time you are really in full alarm, the emotional reaction at this point, your IQ has dropped to 60, between 60 and 90. And by the time you are in great fear or you're really, really angry, you're almost a moron by that time. Tunaelewana? Kwa sababu unafanya vitu vingine ambaye baadaye ukija kuona unasema hata mimi ni mjinga wa mwisho na bumbafu kweli. Because at that time you're so angry you don't care about anything. You stand up to somebody ambaye akikupiga atakumaliza. Or as a man you feel like, I am invincible. I don't care what happens, I'd rather die than live. Then later on it's like, what was I doing this for? That is when this is coming. Nafikiri mchungaji alizungumzia hiyo, jana. So when this is happening, how do we communicate? Because what is happening, according to Dr. Bruce Perry, ni kwamba there is this relational contagion that if what is happening is that you have so much of this brainstem working either by fear, by anger, or frozen, it completely reaches the other person and makes theirs to look exactly the same. Instead of it being this way, having a little bit here and more as you go to the prefrontal lobe, what is happening is you find there is a lot of reaction here and very little coming from up there. And this is very contagious. You go into a room and you are either afraid or fearful or angry, and the vibe goes there and everybody begins to treat you that way. And it's like, why are all people always treating me like this? Yeah, it's the vibe that you send. They send it back to you. It's very contagious. But the best way to deal with it is to understand also what is happening. And that is why it is important to look at this. Because regulation, most of the time, when your child is dysregulated because of a problem, we start with what is wrong with you. And we begin to say, but what is happening is, if there is a problem here, because of the sensory input coming from outside in the world and inside in the somatic input, unless this place is regulated, what you are going to get is not a relationship. But we start with reasoning. What's wrong with you? Mimi nilikuambia hii, what happened? You're trying to talk to the brain that I shut down. Tunaelewana? Because the moment this limbic system blows off the cover, you're not talking to a brain anymore. It's checked out. Nobody at the reception desk. Tunaelewana? So what you are actually dealing with is a hormone. The same thing also during the PMS. You're trying to reason with a hormone with two legs. It doesn't work. That is why sometimes anakuambia, go out for a walk. Come back kama umetulia. Why? So that the brain can be able to connect back again. Then you can be able to reason at that point. But what happens is we begin to try and reason before we actually regulate and find out what is happening. Something seems to have gone on. Help me understand. I feel you. I don't know what's going on. Can I sit here for a minute with you? And then as the brain begins to connect, then you begin to help regulate that part of the brain, then begin to relate, maybe begin to reflect some things back, and then later on, the reasoning would be able to open up. Tunaelewana? So, what happens with communication, particularly intimacy, when you compare it with personalities? Kwa sababu, pia, fuatana na this temperament and personality, we look at intimacy and relationships different. You see, when you look at this, what is going on here, ni kwamba, when you look at the driver, when you draw a line going through here and another line going through there, this quadrant here, because the higher you go, going up, you are more personality, task-oriented, going up there. Coming down this way, most of the time, hold on, let me see that. No, it's the other way around, excuse me. When you move this way, you're more task-oriented, okay? And when you move this way, they are more people-oriented. Now, when you go up there, they are more outgoing, and then they are more reserved. So what is happening when you look at the driver and the analytical, they are more results-oriented. So this is somebody that is really good because everybody has their own strength. When there is an accident on the road, in the emergency room, and all that, you need this guy here because he's very quick in thinking, very quick in assigning people. You know, go wave the car, stop all the cars, And now, do this, cut the door, get somebody else to the hospital, somebody else call 911 and all that kind of thing. They don't have time to say, who can volunteer to do this? No, you need an emergency doctor at that point. You need a driver at that point. Yep. So in an emergency, he's the best guy. Sometimes, when it comes to, for example, things have gone bad, he can be able to come in and wrestle and help everybody else. You need this person here when it's time to do fundraising. To be able to call people, to motivate them, to be able to get them into action. Because he's very good at actually, salesmanship and all that. Somebody said they can actually convince an Eskimo to buy a refrigerator, and then you come home and you wonder, why did I buy this again? They were so convincing and so good. But, we already have this. Why did we need it? But he talked so nice and so convincing that I had to buy it. And the husband said, take them back. We don't have the money. But, I'll be offending them. I don't care. These are the salesmen and saleswomen who can convince you to do anything, and then later on you regret, why did I have to do this? When everything is in turmoil and nobody knows what to do, this is the person that says, okay, cool it now. Let's calm down, cool and collected. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay, let's calm down. Okay. In a crisis, they can bring things down. But this one, and I don't guess a motto, this one doesn't care about your tears and anything. Your mom is not here. You clean it up, and I want the result. I don't care about those tears, and I don't want to see it. I want to see the result. I don't have time for this nonsense. And this guy, when everything has been confused, this one here has left the people in pieces, all wounded. When this one here has no structure, you give them to do a job, they call all the people and they are dancing while they were supposed to wash the house and all that, and then nothing is done, but hey, everybody had a good time, who cares? This guy has to come down and look at the whole business and say, this is a total mess. Who is answerable to who? And where is the chain of command? So they have to sit down and organize everything. All the tablespoons are facing one direction, and all the cutlery and all these things, there is no wrinkle in the bed. Everything is perfect and sparkling. But at the cost of other people. Because, you go back, you are supposed to see a boss na unakutana on the street, hapo tu mlangoni, anasema bwana, go back and follow the chain of command. What do you mean the chain of command? I only have one day to go, and you know what? You should have started last month. So sorry, man, not my job. Go follow the chain of command. Ukifika kwangu, I'll have to see all the signatures. But I can explain to you, you sign it, and then I'll go for the other signatures. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to go back and start the chain of command. Oh, man. Tunalawana lakini. Sasa, na mapenzi je. Hapa ndo ndio kuna shida. Tunalawana. Because everybody is good at their own time. But what happens, because most of the time you go with the driver, everything is okay. It's what? Calculated risk. Results oriented. You go for a honeymoon, and he has planned everything from 4 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. And it's like, man, what are you planning this? We came for a vacation. Forget about this. No, but he wants to hit all the places ili tumalize. efficiency and all that. But look, man, I didn't come, to plan my time and have a to-do list and all that. You reach like 11 o'clock, ladies, you say, I need some chocolate. I need to. No, you didn't tell me this morning. It's not in our to-do list. What do you mean a to-do list? We have to plan for it in the morning. What do you mean? How would I have known 4 o'clock in the morning that I will need this at 11 o'clock at night? Tunaelewana lakini? No, it's about efficiency. Unakuta samaki moja, unaangalia for 1 hour. No, we are supposed to finish the whole aquarium. We go to the next and to the next and the next. But you are fascinated with this thing. Unapiga picha. We go with my wife, walking around a lake. We have a lake 7 miles. She's taking pictures all around the other department. I saw something. No. You know what? The best thing is, unachukua anaingia kwa store na baki kwa gari. Iva vizuri anachuma hiyo. Mwingine anamwambia sasa, do you like to eat grapes? What a stupid question is that? Maybe I can teach you how to eat better. What do you mean? How is there a way to eat? You get a pen knife, you cut one, unakula, unamaliza, unaenda for another bunch. Sema sikia. Kwanza hata sina mfuko ya kuweka hiyo kitu ambayo you're talking about. I want to eat when I want to eat and when I like to eat at whatever time I want to eat. And the other guy has a formula that you have to go through. No, leave me alone. Now, you come to this amiable. This is the best person in the world. Amiable. You come to this amiable. This is the best person in the world. Amiable, quiet, docile, few words per year. Amna shida. Agreeable to everybody. Amna shida. Very good. It may take them 20 years to get angry. But once they get angry, my friend, you are not going to shake their hand at it tumemaliza usiku. No, it took me 20 years to reach here, man. They can be as stubborn as a donkey. Tunaelewana lakini? Because, they don't argue with you. You try to convince them, next week tunaenda mahali anasema lakini I have another appointment. You argue and you talk and you talk and then they keep quiet. So kesho mnakuwa tayari, gari imewashwa kila kitu, anasema mimi siendi mahali nilikwambia sina nafasi. What do you mean? We talked until midnight. I thought, you didn't say no. I didn't say yes either. Tunaelewana? Jamaa mmoja amesema, he was married to this one here. Anasema, oh my goodness, he knelt down kama mchungaji alisema, and he asked God 2 questions. He said, God, I wish that someday I die. Please, God, can you grant me that? But don't grant me that alone. When I die, my second request is my wife gets married to somebody else. It's like, what do you mean? Yeah, so that I have one witness that can understand what I was going through. Because kila mtu anasema bwana, umepata mke wa ajabu dunia hii. She does not kill a fly. But you don't know what ulcers I have. Tunaelewana lakini? What about this guy? This guy is so logical. He's so careful and very analytical in everything. Wakati ingine anakaa pale nakuta analia. What is happening? Oh, he remembered that 20 years ago, alijikojolea huko akiwa nursery school and he's still processing that 20 years later. Tunaelewana? So one day the wife, he's so tired with this guy. Anamwambia ati afunge mlango. Sasa ameenda si amefunga mlango na kidogo 1 hour anasema ulifunga ile mlango ulisema. Jaribu tena angalia. Anaenda anafungua. Mara ya 3 kabla hawajalala wanasema sasa yule mlango ulifunga. Anaenda mwenyewe sasa mke wake anasema sikia. Who do you think I am? What's wrong with you? Until the wife found him red-handed. Yeye mwenyewe is accountant. Ana calculate na anaweka pale. Anarudi tena anafanya naandika karatasi. It's not anything to do with me. He even does it to himself. Tunaelewana? Then you realize, this is not a personal thing. Kumata yeye mwenyewe ana shida hii. Sasa akajaribu akamuelewa. Akaona that's why, no wonder, that's why he's promoted in the company. He's really good. He doesn't have any shortages. But I don't like that when he brings it home. Tunaelewana lakini. But that is who he is. So then you need to realize, okay, at what point is it working for us? Then how can I help ile sehemu nyingine? Tunaelewana? Kwa sababu wewe naye hata wewe naye una shida zako pia. Tunaelewana? Kwa sababu either you are here, it drives the other person nuts. Because they don't understand why you are not organized. Huyu jamaa tena anaweza kukuambia all the electrons and molecules and bosons and all these other things and how they are arranged. That's you hata ajui such aliweka wapi. So what's the problem? How do we communicate therefore? Kwa sababu, this can cause a mess. This is how the cockpit can have a problem. When I was talking about that Korean 8509, this is what is happening every day in our marriages. How then do we communicate across? What do we do when finances enter in? What do we do when huyu jamaa amepata hiyo pesa, he wants to go spend the whole of it? And the other one is, hold it. He wants to know, ile senti tano ilienda wapi? He said, senti tano, man, have a life. Forget about that. 5 cents, I can go give it to you. No. Utatoa wapi hiyo? I need the 5 cents. Ilienda wapi? I can go get the 5 cents. No, from where? From next year's salary? No, we'll talk about that next year, next month. But where did 5 cents go? Oh man. Sasa kumetokea shida ya mtoto. How do you communicate? Kumetokea sijui ubishi wapi. How do we deal with it? So it is when we begin to communicate that we begin to realize that no matter what we have gone through, particularly when you add a level of trauma that has not been dealt with, this becomes a big problem. That is why many would go through this trauma but end up succumbing completely to that, breaking the marriage, breaking the relationship, breaking the whole family, children, everybody else, and sometimes ending up in homicide. There are some that can survive with impairment, dealing with this post-traumatic stress disorder. But how can we learn to be able to reach this level of resilience? And even better, the thriving level of post-traumatic growth. Mungu atusaidie ili atupe neema ya pekee tupate kufikia kimo ambacho Mungu ametujalia. Because when we go by learning how to communicate, then we turn all this trauma into post-traumatic growth that can give you personal strength and know how to relate with the other to the point that you almost talk their language. Gives you these relationships, appreciation of life, new possibilities and spiritual changes. At this point, let me open the floor for questions. I don't know how much time we have left. Ngoja ni
mimi ningeuliza hawa watoto wetu, mwanamke amesoma na degree, mwanaume amesoma na degree. Sasa mshahara nani atautawala?
Nani atautawala? Nimekuja ambao wameketi pamoja wakasemezana, maybe something that you can be able to spend this amount of money. Anything that is beyond that, we need to talk about it. We need to be able to put aside things for charity. We need to put aside for savings. We need to put aside things for emergencies, na mambo mengine, spending and all that, and investment. When there are emergencies ambazo zimetokea, how do we balance it? Isije ikaonekana ya kwamba bwana, hii mambo yote inaenda huko kwao au inaenda huku kwenu, tunaelewana? Na mimi kwanza sisi tumeoa na tumenimalipa mahari bwana. Sasa hii mbona vitu haviendi huku kwetu na tayari nishalipa huku. Kuna wengine pia ambao wamekubaliana ya kwamba kutakuwa na benki mbili. Wakati mwingine wameweza kufanya vizuri, lakini wakati mwingine umekuwa ni ubishi pia ambayo inaendelea kwa sababu fedha zinaenda bila kujulikana na kila mtu anashughulikia. Kwa hivyo kitu tu ambacho kiko ni kwamba ni lazima tuzungumze pamoja. Ikiwa sisi ni kitu kimoja, ni lazima tuzungumze, tujue ya kwamba kama tutaweka katika benki hii itakuwa benki investment, na hii nyingine tutaweka fedha kiasi fulani ambayo ni kwa ajili ya matumizi ya nyumba na mahali ya matumizi ya nini, na yale yote yanabaki hatugusi. Lakini pia kumetokea shida mahali ambapo pesa zinaenda mahala ambapo haujui mahali ipo. But most of the time ni kwa sababu there is no security in the home. We don't trust each other, we don't love each other. Kwa hivyo mama huyu anafikiria sasa kukitokea shida at this rate, baadaye kitokea shida itakuwaje? So if I can't be able to trust you, if I can't be able to open up. Jambo lingine ambalo linatokea ni wakati ambapo we have not prepared our wives to be widows or our men. Why am I talking about this? Because tunaogopa jambo hili. What if something happened to you? Kenya, we are notorious in that, you know. Years and years. I don't know whether you remember SM Otieno. Upper Matasia, the culture versus the other one. Huyu atazikwa wapi? Atazikwa kwa shamba lao ama atarudishwa huko mashambani? And then pesa zote hizo ni za kaketu bwana. Tunataka watoto hawa na sisi tutawalea wenyewe. Kwa sababu wewe utaenda unaolewa tena na unachukua vitu vya kaka wetu. Hatuna. The question is, how do we prepare each other in case the other person is not there? One of the ways I've found me to be able to deal with the in-laws with a lot of wisdom. And what I found work out very helpfully is to switch parents. So that mke wako anashughulikia wazazi wako na wewe unashughulikia wakwe zenu. Kwa sababu ni hivi, wakipiga huku simu wanasema unajua bwana mimi nimeolewa, acha niongee mke nazungumza na mume wangu. Na kidogo unakuwa mgumu huyu mpaka huyu in-law anasema bwana mama achana na huyu, na anatuma kitu. Sasa wanakuja kuona wakizungumza na binti wao hawapati chochote mpaka wazungumze na huko. Sasa so they begin to be like okay. Na huku kwenu pia nao wakikupigia simu unakuwa mkali. Mke wako anasema achana na hiyo. Anapitiliza vitu huko. Yule anasema bwana huyu jamaa alipata bibi. Alipata mke huko, unasema bibi. Alipata mke. Alipata mke wa ajabu kama si huyu. Huyu jamaa hazingetusaidia chochote. Baadaye hata ukiwa umeondoka wanasema jamani, huyu binti wa watu ametutunza ajabu. Nobody should touch her. Kwa sababu ametushughulikia, ametusaidia. The other idiot wouldn't have helped anything if it was not for her. Tunaelewana lakini. So, mnakuja kuta ya kwamba kwa kweli wewe unashughulika hata zaidi ya yeye kwa ajili ya wazazi wake. Na huku pia nayo something is going on that they have so much great respect for you as an in-law. And the boundaries begin to be very clear. Kwa sababu tunajua pia inafika mahali ambapo they can't cross with an in-law. Kuna mahali ambapo hatufiki. But ukienda kwa huyu wena anakuwa mkali. Sasa we have to go the other side. But at least the boundaries will be clear. Sijui kama tunaelewana. So mambo ya finances tusipo yazungumzia. You know what they say is that it is he who pays the piper that calls what? The tune. Tunafika mahali ambapo tumesoma, tumebarikiwa, tuna fedha nyingi kuliko mume wako, then you feel like you can be able to call the shots. Then that is how you ruin the marriage. But on the other hand, ikiwa pia mama huyu hana nafasi, hana amani. Kwa mfano, he may even be a better accountant than you are. So, what are you trying to do when you're trying to manage finances and you don't know? You are the one that is, ile nyingine ilikuwa pale. You are the one that is actually, ukipata siku hiyo, unanunua everything that you need. Kama wale wanaenda baa wanasema bwana, kila mtu apate, then you realize that actually utakuwa na shida. Na si hiyo peke yake. Many of us as men, sometimes tunakuwa na shida. Kwa sababu ukipata simu kutoka shangazi, they know what to do with you. And before you know it, you've promised shangazi. Alafu nani pia? Mjomba. Alafu sijui shemeji. Alafu nani? But sometimes it's like, okay, I've heard what you're saying. We need to sit down and see where we are. Because we have so many commitments and we have to, tupange pamoja. There is something that happens when you have another perspective from somebody else added. Tunaelewana? Kwa hivyo, if you have the perspective of your husband added to your thinking, if you have the perspective of your wife added, kwetu sisi, hata zamani zile, ukienda kwa mnandi unauliza jambo, anasema, acha, let me go sleep on it. Literally nasema, unajua tulikuwa tunandalia ile ngozi. Anasema, wacha niende kwenye ngozi, kesho tutazungumza. Unafikiri kuna ngozi wapi? Si anaenda anaketi na mke wake wanafanya nini? Lazima tunyenyekee kama waume, tunyenyekee kama wake, ili tupange mambo ambayo itatusaidia. Asante. Kuna swali?
Mimi sina swali, mimi
ni comment.
Nina comment, nina nyongeza.
Sawa.
Na nitaongezea kwa wanawake na wanaume. Kwa wanawake, mara nyingi sana conflict kwenye nyumba tunazitafuta. Like mtu amenyanyua kiti cha toilet, why don't you just put down? What is wrong for you to put down kama yeye alinyanyua? So there's a little things we just make up a big deal about things in a different character. Tumelelewa kwenye nyumba tofauti. Just let people be. Kila saa ni kutaka uwe mother, ubadilishe tabia za mtu. Well, most of people think I was just married now, but niliolewa tangu 2020. Huyu baba ni mkimya, ni mpole, haongei. Mimi niko fire. Umeelewa? Lakini namwacha awe. What he likes to do, he just do how he like it. I didn't join him kuwa mother wake. Kila saa, hiyo imekaa hivi, hapo umepita hivi. So sometimes wanawake tuna create conflict kwa sababu ya vitu vidogo vidogo ambavyo wivu. Mtu amezoea, alikuwa na marafiki zake huko, alikuwa anaongea na ndugu zake kila siku, mama yake kila siku, but every time he say, why are you talking to your mother, you don't talk to me? What's wrong with you? Let him be. Huyu sio mtoto wako. Another thing kwa upande wa wanaume, lazima niwaambie, ninafanya kazi kwenye healthcare. Wanawake ni wengi wazee kuliko wanaume. Wanaume wamekufa wengi. And the reason is because ninamwangalia babangu na mama. Babangu yuko almost 90, mamangu yuko 86. Mamangu ana dementia mbaya, lakini anajitahidi, anatembea. She's not lazy. Baba hata ukimwambia atembea hapo na hapo hataki. So now he's losing his mobility. And the reason is because mwanamke ndani ya nyumba is everything. Anachukua watoto, baba amekaa na remote anaangalia. Move around. Saidia kufuta meza, panga meza. That will make you live longer. People are dying because they are now moving around and all the heart diseases are killing them. Alafu mnalaumu mwanamke huyu, maneno ndio maana mume kafa. Umekufa kwa sababu move around.
Asante dada, nashukuru.
Asante sana mchungaji, na naongezea kwenye comment ambazo zimetolewa. Lakini ninachotaka kusema ni kuwa mara nyingi vijana wetu au hata sisi wenyewe, tabia zetu zimekuwa established so much by the time we get married. Now, by the time we get married, we start living our lives in a certain way that is very difficult for us to move from that railroad to another railroad. Kuna mfano ambao umetoa kuhusu jinsi somebody learned from the way their mother was treating their father, and she knew as she was growing up, she knew that was wrong. I mean, the mother was manipulative. And I'll give an example because this is not going anywhere. I mean, the way it is, like the mother will be always anajipamba, yani ananunua nguo nzuri, everything. Lakini mume wake, hicho kiatu hicho kinapelekwa kwa fundi, kinakuwa kinarekebishwa kila mwaka, hicho ndicho hicho. Na mume wake ndiye anafanya kazi, mwanamke anafanya kazi kidogo, lakini when there is extra money atawatuma watoto waibe pesa za baba, wampe aende akanunue vitu. So when these kids were growing, they were saying this is wrong. hiki kitu kinachoendelea sio sawa. Lakini hawa wasichana wamekuwa, they have got married. The way now they are operating life, they are becoming manipulative the same way that their mothers did. Knowing is not good enough. Sometimes we need therapy. Knowing that something was happening on your home, on your family of origin that was wrong is not good enough. You have to take a list. You have to have an insight of what am I doing, which really happened in the house that I came from, which is not adding up, is not working. And most of the time we do have very poor insight. Unaangalia mtu mwingine unasema ndiye yeye, huyo ndiye anafanya hivi, ndiye anafanya hivi. But thinking about it, those are the things you took from the house where you came from. Even as men, we have to observe, because if there was a way that our father used to treat our mother, that's when the tire meets the road. That's the way we're going to behave, even if we did not like it. Another thing for fathers, we set our children, especially our girls, to look for somebody who is going to mistreat our children the same way we mistreated their mothers. Kama unampiga mama yao, hata kama hawa watoto hawakupenda jinsi ambavyo mama yao alikuwa amepigwa, subconscious mind records that they have to look for somebody who is going to treat them the way their mothers were treated. And after that, you come to fight with these in-laws who are a mess. You prepare your children to look for somebody who is a mess.
And it's not like we are consciously going to look for that or to manipulate, even though when it's wrong. But you have vowed, I will never do that until you hit a crisis. That's why we're talking about communication in a crisis. When you hit a crisis, that part of the prefrontal lobe flips. What it leaves is this area of the limbic system, and it does what it saw being done. But the other one is absent. But when it connects, you regret it, because I'd said I will never do this. But by the time you're doing it, it's not there. You flip the lead. Tunaelewana? But everything that is recorded is here. So remaining connected and beginning to deal with recleaning and rewiring this section is what is important. And that is when therapy would be very helpful. And that is why we have professionals in our midst to help you with that. Mchungaji, sijui kama bado tuna
ya mwisho kidogo hapo.
Okay. Okay, basi. Yes. Okay, go ahead. You have the mic already.
Yeah, labda sio swali. Kwanza namjibu yule mama kwamba wazee, mimi ni mmoja wa wazee, tunazeeka haraka kwa sababu ukitaka kushika kitu kidogo nakwambia mzee usishike. Hata sasa hivi nikitaka kutengeneza gari watoto wangu naambia no dad, don't do it. Tutapeleka garage. Usishike, ukienda nyumbani ndio kabisa hawataki ushike kitu. Psychologically unafikiri kweli ni mzee, unaamua kulala. Nyingine ni ile ya pesa, mchungaji. Ile ya pesa inahitaji sana muda. Watu wa mataifa wanasema kwamba wamefikia kwa sababu wanasema number one cause of divorce ni pesa.
Correct.
Na watu wa mataifa wamefikia wakati tunaona kwenye TV wanasema kwamba kila mtu awe na paycheck yake na alafu tuweke paycheck katikati. Sijui kama wewe mchungaji utatuambia hivyo. Ila mimi kuna kitu kimoja kwa experience yangu. Pesa hamwezi kufanana ndani ya nyumba. Haiwezekani kabisa. Mmoja atakuwa ni sio mzuri kama mwingine. Hiyo lazima ieleweke kwamba pesa hamwezi kufanana. Kwa hiyo ndio communication, mnicommunicate ni nani atunza hiki, ni nani alipe hiki. Asante.
Okay.
Asante sana mchungaji kwa masomo mazuri ya ndoa, masomo mazuri ambayo unatupatia. Mimi kwa upande wangu sio swali, mnyongeza na experience ambayo ninayo. Kwanza naomba tuelewane tu. Ndoa zote hazilingani na haziwezi. Ni tuko vio tofauti lakini tuna cheo kimoja. Yaani hapo ndio ushangae ukuu wa Mungu ulivyo. Tunapewa masomo hapa, lakini mimi leo na mume wangu hayuko hapa. Nikirudi nyumbani namjua kuna yale ambaye nita apply, kuna ambayo hapa kweli nilikosea, hapa kweli ni. Lakini siwezi nikabeba kwa mfano nikampelekea nikamwambia, unajua nini? mke wa Magoma anafanya hivi, na Magoma anafanya hivi, na wewe kama mume wangu nataka ufanye hivyo, utakuwa ugomvi ambao yeye atajiuliza mpaka unanilinganisha na yule. Katika sensi za sisi wanadamu, kiubinadamu anza kufikiria una urafiki gani mpaka ukataka mimi niwe kama Magoma. Yaani kuna vitu kuna hivyo. Na kuna kingine ni kwamba turudi katika Edeni. Biblia inatuambiaje? Kuna utii na kuna upendo. Vitu hivi viwili katika Biblia, kwamba mwanamke atafanya nini? Atatii. Ni neno kubwa, ni neno dogo, lakini na upana wake. Ukiwa kiroho utakielewa na utaweza kuwa ndani yake. Upendo, kwamba nimeambiwa nimpende, kuna nini? Huyu ni dhaifu, huyu ni fragile. Ni neno ambalo lipo, lakini ukiingia kiroho kwamba Mungu akusaidie ukaelewa maana yake, utafurahia ndoa. Kuna kitu kinaitwa ni vitu vidogo vidogo kwa nikiongea kwa sisi wanawake, hiyo ni general. Mwanamke utamfanyia kitu wewe utaona ni kidogo, utake easy, lakini kwake ni kidonda, kitakaa. I love you today, hilo neno, kuna love atasema hii kweli ni I love you, lakini haitenda I love you haimuingii. Sasa yuko mwanamke mentally na muharibu vibaya mno. Wewe hujui, mtazaa watoto, mtaenda, ndio mwisho unaishia na chingomo. Hakujali, ana recall ile uliomfanyia ile. Wewe kumletea maua, sijui kumfanyia nini, mjue mke wako, ujue anapenda nini, anataka nini, mpe na Mungu atakubariki, kwa sababu ni hazina unayoiweka baadaye. Usilalamike ukufanya, mnalaumu wa baba au kulea mtoto baadaye amekuwa waziri, nataka baba. Pia na mke, kumbuka ni hazina Mungu amekupa, kukupatia tu hivi, alikupa na maana yake. Kwa mwanaume, wewe jiulize, umebarikiwa, umepata mme, paka mnachumbiana, paka anakuja kuoa. Fikiria wewe umevaa vizuri, umeshiba, huyu mume wako ambaye ndio mume wako, unashindwa hata kumlia kashati, unashindwa hata kumlia nguo, unashindwa ile. Sio kwamba alivyomkuta au sijui umbadilishe. Kuna vitu kutana navyo ndani ya ndoa. Mwanamke, pigana, simamia, na Mungu anaona, kwa sababu hata yeye mwenyewe ile appearance amevaa vizuri ataonekana, watamwambia wa nje umependeza, yeye atakuja kumbe ni mimi, na mimi ni mtu katika watu, na mimi pia nimependeza, nimetoka wapi, mke wangu amenipikia. Unaona, ni baraka kwako, na pia yeye kuna kitu ambacho umempatia, umemuongezea katika maisha yake, ile furaha alionayo. Wanakuwa na mambo mengi wao kama familia, kama wao, lakini unakuta wana siri zao, anashindwa kukueleza. Kuwa mndani wake, jaribu kushuka chini, hata kuingia kuna makosa katika nyinyi wawili. Sio siku zote kila mtu apande, wote shuka kwa mjinga, lakini kuna engo ambayo itatokea. Lakini unakumbuka siku ile pale wewe ulikuwa hivi hivi. Ni mambo ya ndoa, ni tricky Mungu ametupatia, ambayo kama utaweza ndoa hapa, basi tutakuwa mbinguni sawa. Kuna ndoa lakini
If so, how long can it take to accept?
Okay, kwa sababu tuna dakika 5 tu zimebaki, tumezaliwa na dunia tuliomo. There's so much that is going on. The reason why we are sharing this is not to say that you can use it to say that is who I am. But if indeed you love this lady, you love this man, and with the power of Christ that is possible, there is nothing that is impossible with God. But to be able to understand where our tendencies are na nilivyolelewa na maadili ambayo nimekuwa nayo. But if it is hurting the other person, it is something to take to the Lord in prayer. And as you begin to walk and communicate and help to walk, we need to walk towards this. Now, when I talk about communication, hebu tujaribu kuzoea lugha hii ambayo tunasema mke wangu, mume wangu, habari za asubuhi. Where are we today? Where are we today? So that we are moving together every single day. Where are we? And where are we moving towards? So that kuna njia. And with many of these personality issues, it has reached a point where with communication and all that, you see the bridge coming together, so that one person was in this extreme and the other person was on the other extreme, lakini wamesogeana, wamefika ama hata katikati, ambapo mahali unashangaa hata unaona it's as if the other guy is moving towards the opposite end and this one is moving to the other opposite end. Kwa sababu with communication they are daily finding out where are we, what is going on, what is happening with our children, what is happening, you know, so that, because every single day I may wake up from home and go to work. By the time I return, huyu jamaa ameenda Ukreo. He finished work, na vile ameambiwa huko, he left home different and he's coming home a different person because of what has happened. So the question again is, karibu nyumbani, welcome home. How has it been? How was your day? Where are we? Because there may be something that I'm going through that I need to be able to process. Na wakati mwingine inategemea pia, mwingine anafika anasema jamani, give me 5 minutes. Because we as men have to go to the cave in order to be able to do what? To get our thoughts together. We can't walk and chew gum at the same time. What I mean is we are very different. You know, I sometimes use this example ya kwamba women are very adaptable, you know. I don't know whether it's the corpus callosum, you know, that connects both hemispheres. Lakini sisi kwetu ni shida. Unajua kwetu ni kama sijui, at least naona wengine wa miaka ya makamu kidogo. Nakumbuka ile kifuli ya zamani. Ulikuwa unaweka ufunguo hapo katikati, si chini huku, hapo katikati, tena unashungusha mara 3. Unakumbuka? Ilikuwa yafunga gala. Sasa unaenda unaweka kifunguo, unazungusha mara ya kwanza, mara ya pili, na mara ya ngapi? Ya 3 ndio inafunguka. Sasa anafanya hivyo. Sasa anakuja anafunga hii 1, 2, 3, alafu anaenda fungua ile 1, 2, 3, anatafuta ile kitu. Unamuuliza kitu kingine kwa sore, haya anafunga hii mara 3. Mtoto amepata mimba. Unamwambia what has happened. Mama mmoja alisema hata hauna habari. Okay. So unamwambia, you know what he does? He walks out. Well, unamwambia, did you hear what I said? Anaenda. You think mtoto huyu alipata mimba kwa ajili yangu? Where are you going? But thank God that he's able to go away. Because either he goes away, arudi kama ametulia, ama mtu atakufa. Tunaelewana? Azira ambazo zimpanda, he doesn't know what to do. And he has to go out to get his mind, then he can come back and find out what do we do. Lakini ukitaka aketi hapo muongee, either huyu binti atakufa ama yule ambaye alimpata ya mimba atakufa. Tunaelewana? Mungu hakututengeneza hivyo. So there are times ambao utajua, let me give him 5 minutes, alafu tutaongea baadaye. The problem with us ni kwamba when they give you 5 minutes to go, kwa sababu huyu mke wako amekasirika ajabu, na hiyo ghadhabu unasema msiwezani nayo, unaenda pale, umepewa muda. Be a gentleman enough to come back after the 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you asked and say, mke wangu, sasa nimetulia kidogo, hebu tuongee. Lakini tunaenda huko, tunarudi, tunakuta amelala kitini. Enda unalala saa, wiki inaisha, wiki 2, mama amesahau, mke wako amesahau hiyo. Next time again, no, we need to talk. No, I don't have time. Anasema no, we have to talk tonight. Kwa sababu nikikupa nafasi haufanyi nini? Haurudi. Kwa sababu unakuta amesahau. No, but it's actually good to bring it up kwamba jana tulikubaliana kwamba tuongee, hebu tuongee tuone, how can I help? What's happening? Then wengi wetu tunaona ya kwamba if I'm not angry we cannot talk about it. Kwa sababu nikishatulia then I don't have motisha ya kusungumza. No, it's actually the best time to talk. Because hata kama everything is great now, so I thank God for what is happening right now. But I think it is important for us to go back to what happened yesterday. So we know what we did wrong and what we could have done differently. I like this right now. I'm not going to bring it ili kuharibu what is going on now. But no, I want us to go back so we can do a post-mortem of it and learn from it. So don't waste any fight. Use it and milk it. Hebu na tuombe. Nafikiri muda wetu umeisha. Mchungaji, labda una jambo la
Nilikuwa nasema Mungu ashukuriwe kwa kazi ambayo Mungu amefanya, na naamini kwamba wote mmebarikiwa sana. Labda tu niseme tu neno moja tu kwamba haya mambo yanatusaidia sisi wenyewe on a personal level, tukayafanyie kazi on a personal level. Yaani nasikiliza mimi kama Caleb, sifikirii kuhusu Esther. Sasa kulingana na haya, what can I do to make myself a better person? Yale mambo nafanya bila kujua nayafanya, sasa mengine najua. How can I become a better husband, a better father, a better communicator? Nifanyie kazi hayo. Nadhani kila mmoja akienda kafanyia ya kwake, tutakutana katikati, tumekuwa watu bora kidogo kuliko tulivyo kwa mara ya kwanza. Kwa naamini Mungu atatubariki. Tumebakiza dakika 10 kabla ya kurudi tena hapa. Kuna break baada ya hapo, kwa tutaomba. Una request? Pastor anasema kama kwamba una writings au kitabu au basi nadhani ya
a very tough time.
Ndio maana
right now I'm collecting my data as I'm speaking. Niliwaambia I've been already, in about 16 states that I'm still have about another 3 to finish.
Napitisha hapo ili kwamba tumuombe zaidi, mnaelewa zaidi haya. Basi nadhani pastor ni kuruhusu uombe kufunga mkutano. Na baada ya hapo utakwenda kwenye break, tukumbuke kurudi hapa saa 5. 11 o'clock on time. Tuna 10 minutes za kwenda personal time na kupata some snack. Karibu pastor.
Tuombe basi. Our Father and our God, we want to thank you and sincerely and humbly come before you as we present our families together. We pray that you may be able to speak peace to each one of us. We have tendencies that we've inherited. We have personality and temperaments that are very different. But day by day, as you change us from one glory to another, of that similitude of Christ, then you will weld the two into one. As we live and cleave and weave, so that at the end of the day, we are not only one body, physically, but also psychologically and spiritually. But even as we continue to maintain our own various personalities and characters, yet Lord, as we behold Jesus, we may all be changed after his similitude. Father, there are many, many areas that we struggle as marriages and as families, but we ask that you may go ahead of us and even touch those that were not here, Lord. And as we go back, may we also begin to reflect the character of Christ, that our husbands and wives may be able to see the glory of God in our faces and begin to wonder why. Then they only notice that we have been with Jesus. And so I pray that as the enemy continues to throw darts at our families and our marriages and our children, that as a united platoon of 2 and many in this family of the church, we may be able to rally together and protect one another. May peace go with us now, even as we get ready for another session.